Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. I'm going to be today talking about the Starfield objects which we've seen so far, of which mainly there's been a few actually, and I kind of wanted to again talk about how this relates to previous titles that Bethesda's made, such as Fallout and Skyrim, also having interactable objects. We do know, for example, that there's this candle and sandwich, both of which are probably interactable. By the way, make sure you're subscribed so you see lots of Starfield content in the future. Subscribe right now. It's good to see that they're high fidelity objects. I know that some of the old Skyrim objects were not exactly the most, high quality, although definitely their chalices and like medieval items were, but some of them definitely weren't as well. So it's good to see that they're going with that route. We can also see in this other picture here a picture of another few interactable objects which you can probably move around, including some cups, a book, pen and pencil, and some paper as well. Really good to see. We can also see this burger here, which again we assume probably could be interactable. What I'm hoping for really with one of the things in Bethesda is that they really do keep up the tradition of keeping all of their food that is in the game as also interactable objects. I know that in, again, Cyberpunk, another thing they didn't do really that well was the amount of items in the game which are interactable, because it does mean that the game feels a little bit more customized and again interactable, and that's a nice feeling to have in the games. It's nice to have the mini dopamine hits of getting these items, picking everything up, and also have, instead of just going into a drawer or going into a filing cabinet and finding the items, instead they're laid around the actual environment and you have to physically pick them up. That has a better immersion aspect to it than having it again in a wardrobe. It's also funny to see some of the fun things you can do with the objects in previous titles. For example, you could put a bucket over an NPC's head. I really didn't like, again, similarly to Cyberpunk, Witcher, which again visually they were beautiful, but the worlds are static and the items again did not have much interactability, which to me detracted from the games. Now, Todd has actually said in 2 recent interviews that he likes in his games when you can interact with them, and he wants that in Starfield as well. Being able to take a cup and hold it, I believe, was his example. And while the clutter is possible in other games, the creation engine which Starfield is based on does excel at keeping track of all your items. So you can pick something up, improve it, wear it, put it in a container, and then give it to a companion and even discard it, and that entire object life cycle is, given a physical representation instead of just being, again, something in your inventory that you can see, but other than that you don't really get to see or interact with in any meaningful way. I don't know if any of you remember, but in Fallout 76, and being an online game, they actually cut down on the amount of interactable stuff and replaced it with a lot of static items, things that need to be processed less. My thought was, with Starfield being a much more large game than normal, maybe we'd see a similar amount to Fallout 76 with half the implementation in order to free up some resources to be used elsewhere. With the latest video though, Todd did say that one of the hallmarks of the game again is to expect the interactable objects and the feeling associated with that, and so I think that should be fine. Another example of how they could further increase the amount of interactable objects and how they make the game interesting is make alternate paths across levels, across quests, and making your own cover. Those kind of things again could add in terms of interactable stuff. It would also be really cool to see them do things like in Deus Ex Dishonored Prey, which again share many similarities with Bethesda's game design, where really they try to emphasize the gameplay freedom and the branching storylines and sandbox freedom systems in the game, you know, with a systemic design rather than scripted events. These are almost always, you know, fast-person RPG, stealth shooter hybrids. Personally, I would very much like to see that more immersive sim element incorporated into Starfield, and maybe even the Elder Scrolls 6, and I think it's very likely to happen based on what we've heard so far. I know that fans of Bethesda seem to agree with me from what I can tell, so it's definitely something I think we're hoping for. And again, other things like non-lethal takedown options in Starfield would also be really nice to see. It kind of did bug me that we were almost always forced to be mass murderers in the Elder Scrolls and Fallout. One of the most common and tried and tested uses of objects, and it could happen in Starfield too, is to either use it to, you know, alter, you know, an engine or a mechanical part to complete a quest, or you can also use these interactable objects to reach places that you otherwise can't, to pick up keys, you know, a lot of really crazy things like that you can do. You know, obviously as well, potions and other things that are kind of like a glow, which again makes the player go and pick them up, also can be a good visual tool if that ability is added into the game instead of, again, just having it be a wardrobe. There's actually in Morrowind quite a few locations which are hidden unless you can reach it via levitation, and these interior spaces were often gigantic caverns with hidden nooks and crannies. There's even one dungeon in a dungeon that I'm aware of, in which the entrance of the cave is cleverly hidden away from on-foot adventurers, and given that Fallout 4 had jetpacks, I could see Starfield also having them, and so you could have this vertical Morrowind style dungeons that could make a comeback. I think actually increased interactivity in the wilds has been one of the few good trends in gaming in the last few years. A good example of this is Breath of the Wild, and I'm sure that did not escape their attention. To expand on this a little bit, I would love to see the interactivity between different elements as well, similar, especially for Elder Scrolls 6. So, you know, you could use a frost spell on water and nothing happen, or, you know, use a flame spell on ice for it to melt, to, you know, put fire onto water and for nothing to happen, or electricity onto water and for it to cause a, you know, I guess what it would be is an electric charge. That kind of stuff, interactability wise, would be cool to see, and I would love to see that as well. I'd also love to hear what you guys think. Leave your comments in the comment section and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, because it helps the channel a bunch. Until next time, have a great day. GG, subscribe.